Good morning. Today we'll start with our ethics lecture 20. We were doing our chapter regarding the ethical governance, and we dealt with the public institution, that is government institutions and private institutions. So ethics lecture 20. Most of the parts we have already covered, theory part. One more chapter is remaining regarding the probity in governance that will bring in the next classes. First we need to finish our today's class, and then after we'll be left with the corporate governance and ethical concerns in the international relation and international funding. As you might be aware that the BYJU'S are under the scanner of the enforcement directorate because they have not followed the Foreign Exchange Management Act, FEMA. Earlier it was FERA, Foreign Exchange Regulation Act. This all you study in your GS paper 3 under the economy part. So Foreign Exchange Regulation Act was changed to Foreign Exchange Management Act because it was made easier for the institutions, for the corporate institutions, private business firms to take foreign funding, foreign investment easily. Not much of government regulation, but managing it to make it easy for the institutions, for the organizations. But now the corporates like BYJU'S, they have not followed certain rules, and because of that a huge scam is there. 9,000 crore of the order of 9,000 crore, that Foreign Exchange Management Act not being followed, and they are under the scanner of Enforcement Directorate, ED. As you are aware, it is in the news. So whatever comes in the news, you have to be aware about those facts, and we will bring this in our corporate governance and ethical concerns in international relation and international funding. International funding is a different story, which is there in the BYJU'S case. International relation, what should be the ethical concerns in the international relation? Like we have UNO, we have BRICS, and certain other organizations which don't follow the ethical rules. And it results into an unethical governance. International governance is following the unethical practices. So this we need to understand, and there can be a question from this part as well. Largely speaking, most of our dimensions of the ethics, integrity, aptitude paper are limited to certain concepts which we have dealt in the few classes earlier, first 2, 3, 4 classes. After that, what we are doing is just exploring those topics according to the need of the syllabus. That's it. So you must understand that the substance, the content is limited, and if you go through the content, limited content, and revise it properly again and again, and have your examples and application from around you, you will be able to score well. And due to certain difficulties, the notes which were supposed to be given, as we are framing it in a right manner to make it very catchy, and it will be good for you to organize. Because of that, it is taking time, but you will get the notes. You should rely upon your own notes which you are jotting down right now. There is no need to worry. And I also want you to break away from the habit of having all the notes ready before you go to the examination. Once you start churning the information, using the information again and again, revising what you have done, then you will realize that there is very less, very limited use of the content, more is the use of application. So we'll start with today's topic, and today's topic is your laws, rules and regulations. Laws, rules, regulation plus your conscience. Now, laws, rules, regulations where? Conscience where? In public as well as private institutions. Since our last discussion we had seen that the public institution or the government institutions, if we compare them from private institutions, largely the structure, process, behavior, there are three dimensions of any organization. So structure and process of both the organizations, whether it is government or the private, remains largely same, because they are defined by the rules, laws, regulations. And what are these laws, rules, regulations? These are your laws, the broad framework like constitution. These are your, a subset of law is rules. Then comes your regulations. Regulations are the subset of rules. Further define specific regulation, that this is one way, you cannot enter this place, this is your regulation. The rule is the traffic rules which we follow when we are going out in the traffic. The regulation that this road is one way, in that road there is only one way traffic. The movement of the cars, the vehicles, everything will be from one way towards the other side. The vehicles will not be moving from the other side towards us. That is your regulation, the specific rule. Then the rules, what are the rules? The rules are the traffic rules which you follow, like if it is red light you have to stop, if it is green light you have to go. These are the rules. Then what are the laws? The overall broad framework under which these rules, regulations will operate are your laws. And what are the laws here? The most supreme law is your constitution. Constitution is the most supreme, the supra law. The broad framework, that is your constitution, that we have already understood. Now we need to understand that in public and private institutions both, as the laws, rules, regulations are same, the only thing which we saw different in your government organization and the private organizations, the difference lies in what? The government organizations have corruption due to discretion and secrecy. These are the two factors. What about the private organizations? In the private organizations, the discretion is very less. There is no secrecy. The secrecy is also very less. Due to discretion and secrecy being very less, the chances of corruption in private organizations is low. But still, there is, as we have seen, conflict of interest. There is conflict of interest. We have also understood that in private organizations there can be nepotism. There can be partisanship. Nepotism, partisanship. These things can also be there. Now, how to take control of these factors in private organizations and discretion and secrecy in the public organization? For them comes your laws, rules, regulations, and above, over and above everything is your conscience, the inner moral guide. Inner moral guide, which propels you, which gives you a direction towards which you have to move, so that there is simple, moral, accountable, responsive, and transparent governance. Whenever there is any use of good governance, use of ethical governance, use of citizen friendly governance, or any positive form of governance, you can straight away use these terms: simple, moral, accountable, responsive, and transparent. These are the frameworks. So, to ensure this, out of all these factors, simplicity, morality, responsiveness, transparent, and accountability, the accountability as a factor comes as the most important aspect of the ethical governance. Now, you see the way we have simplified the process. First of all, whenever it is about good governance, whenever it is about ethical governance, you need not worry at all. You should straight away write these points: simple, moral, accountable, responsive, and transparent governance. When talking about the laws, rules, regulations, and conscience, what is more important? Which factor is the most important when we talk about the government institutions or the private institutions? The most important factor in both the aspects is your inner conscience. Why are we saying that the inner conscience is the most important aspect? The government institutions are bound by rules and laws and regulations. Yes, that is there. But you have already seen that there are discretion, there are laws of secrecy. To ensure the secrecy, there is a specific law called Official Secrets Act, which binds the government servant, the public servant, not to reveal the information which can be contrary to national security. If it is affecting the national security, you should not reveal it. Due to this Official Secrets Act, most of the government departments never revealed many of the information by taking coverage, hiding behind, misusing the law of Official Secrets Act, which was done away with when RTI was introduced, the right to information. When right to information was introduced, we saw that the Official Secrets Act took a back seat, and now on its own, due to the initiatives of National E-Governance Plan and EGP, National E-Governance Plan, all the government departments are supposed to release most of the information suo motu. What is the meaning of suo motu? On their own. Suo motu release of, suo motu revealing of the information on their own. Because the governments are supposed to release the information on their own, there can be very less misuse and abuse of Official Secrets Act. Transparency brought in the government. Discretion, regarding the discretion, as we saw that when the country moves from the developing country towards a developed country, the laws become more and more defined, more and more specific. So the role of discretion decreases. There is less discretion here in the developed countries. And as we are moving towards the developed countries, because of the liberalization, privatization, and globalization, because of this liberalization, globalization, because of these three factors, we are seeing that the role of discretion of the government servants have become lesser. There is more of openness in the government. There is more of specificity in the rules. So discretion is less, secrecy is less. The corruption has decreased because of these initiatives. But having said so, there is still scope of manipulation of the rules, laws, and regulations in the government institutions. How to do away with them? Now, contrast with the situation in the private organizations. In the private organizations, there is less role of discretion and secrecy, and because of which we have lesser corruption. But even there, the laws, rules, and regulations can be ineffective if the person who is following the law does not follow the principles of ethicality and morality. So both in private organizations and in government organizations, it is possible that a person or a group of people who are not following the ethical moral conduct can indulge in corruption, can always think of misusing and abusing the law. So the best guide there is your inner conscience, the inner moral compass. Because this inner moral compass will be having the substance of compassion, substance of empathy. As we have seen, empathy, tolerance, and compassion. Empathy and compassion will be part of the inner moral compass. So the focus here in our paper of ethics, integrity, aptitude is on what? Your inner conscience. If your inner conscience is strong, whether it is private organization or public organization, in both the spheres it is important that inner conscience is there, and having an inner conscience will ensure that there is less corruption in both the places. But if you contrast, which one is more important, public organization or private? Where the role of inner conscience is more in the public organizations. Why? Because the impact of the decisions taken in the public organization is far more as compared to private organization. Private organization, Nestle is a company. They produce Maggi. They manufacture Maggi. You know Maggi, staple food for many Indians. A packet in 10 rupees, 15 rupees. cook it in 2 minutes, eat it. Whether you get the nutrition or not is none of their business. Whether you are going to face any difficulty because of the ingredients, because of the gram flour which is used, because the flour which is used, maida, which is really bad for your gut health, but they don't care about it. They are actually profit oriented. But if you look at the decision of the public or government organizations, suppose the government of the day comes up with a law that RTI will be banned now. Right to information will no more operate. Do you think the Maggie law and the right to information banning law, they are both equal? The answer is no. That is why the implication of the government decisions are far more, because this RTI, banning the RTI will affect the poorest of the poor people, the powerless people, marginalized section of the society. But if you look at the decision taken by Nestle company regarding Maggie, they will be largely looking at the profit orientation, and their impact will also not be so severe. Suppose they increase the rate of Maggie from 10 to 20 rupees per packet. What will be its impact, and who will be bearing the impact? The impact will be borne by people who are in the middle strata or upper strata of the society. Middle strata of the society or upper strata of the society, or those who consume the product. Will the decision to increase the price tag of Maggie affect the complete country, affect the whole country? The answer is no. It will only affect a small section of society. But if we ban the RTI, the RTI ban will affect the complete set of society, that is each and every one, whether they are rich, whether they are poor, whether they belong to higher caste, lower caste, north region, south region, east region, west region, everywhere this decision will resonate. The implication will be really, really, really high. That is why the government institutions, the decision taken by government institutions have to be not only fair but fairer than the private organizations. They have to follow the ethical principles more meticulously. They cannot hide behind the other laws, because they themselves are the law. The government themselves the law, and is say why I was saying that the person who is in the public service, a person who is in the uniform, suppose a person is dressed as a policeman and he cheats a local youth by intimidating him that I'll put you in jail if you don't pay me 50,000 rupees. The local youth might be disturbed and may not be aware of the laws which are supportive to him, may be ready to give the money to the police official. Firstly, it's a corruption, it's a case of corruption. Secondly, now the image of the people, image of the local youth regarding the police will be that they are going to harass us. The policemen, they will also complain that because of the conduct of a third person, our image is getting disturbed, getting tanked. So we have to ensure that if we talk about the inner conscience, if we talk about the ethical moral governance, that is to be seen more vividly. It should be more pronounced. more detailed as compared to the private organizations. Although we have already seen in our last class that although the kind of interface we have with the private organizations is far more than the private than our interface with the public organization. Suppose you are preparing for UPSC examination, you are surrounded by your private organization, your organization. You are joining a coaching, a private organization. You are using the materials, pen, pencil, or eraser, everything private organization. Your interface with the, as a UPSC aspirant, what is your interface with the government? Firstly, you are writing the exam. Second thing is your interface with the common parts of the government, that executive, legislature, you will have the interface. But more pronounced, more evident, what is the interface? Which interface is more evident? Yeah, there was some disturbance in the net. Your interface with the private organizations is much more pronounced, clear, as compared to the interface with the government. But still, the government has to be more ethical. Government has to follow, the government officials have to follow the call of the conscience more effectively in a more pronounced manner, because one, we have already seen that the implication of the decision, the consequences of the decision will be implications implications of the decision will be much more pronounced. One. Secondly, the government organization will not only have to also watch over the conduct of the private institutions, private organization. As I gave you the example, institutes who were sent legal notice, who were sent notice by the CCPA, which looks after the consumer affairs, consumer rights. So they were sent the notice that how can you publish the name of the same person? How can 5 different coachings publish the name of the same person? Yeah, there was some disturbance. So the CCPA, which looks after the consumer affairs, they sent the notice to the coaching institutions, because 20 different coaching institutes were giving the name of the same person, that the student had studied with us and they have got this rank. So because of that, the government took action. So government takes action over private institutions also. So where is the probability of, rather the need of ethical conduct more? The answer is very simple. The need of the ethical conduct is more in the public organizations, that is your government organizations. And it is very important that in the public organization, there is should not only be, it should not only be ethical conduct, it should also be seen as an ethical conduct. The perception of people is very important. See, when we talk about our legislature and executive, perception, what people think about you, as we talk about the political culture, what do you perceive about the political culture, how ethical it is, the political culture of the country? What do you think about the politics? It's not only the politics, but what do you think about the politics? That's also important. Likewise, the bureaucratic culture. The government culture of the government. What do people feel about the government? As many people say that after 2014, since Modi government came to the power, the corruption in central ministries has decreased like anything. And there are evidences of this as well. People have said this on record. Various bureaucrats, many other businessmen, they have all said that yes, it has decreased. But there are, these questions are subjective, there are different viewpoints, so we should not take any black and white judgment. There are gray areas, we don't know actually, because you see, I'll tell you how it happens. In 2013, when in the end of 2013, when 2014 election was going to be conducted, during that year only, during that time only, CAG of that time, Comptroller and Auditor General, which you study in your GS paper 2, Comptroller and Auditor General, they gave a report that there has been a 1.76 lakh crore huge loss to the exchequer, to the government finance. Now people perceive that this government which was there in the administration, the UPA government, UPA 2, they are all corrupt, they are all stupid, they are all thieves. Because of this, the Congress government, they got very bad impression, and because of that they were defeated outrightly. Now once this impression has been made, now this impression cannot go. The CAG was not supposed to give this figure, despite the fact that it is clearly written in the rules that CAG will only give the verified numbers. But using the discretion, CAG gave this number. Later on, we realized recently only, when the news was revealed, when the Supreme Court gave clean chit to those who were involved in the CAG corruption cases, as told by CAG, they realized that these cases were false. So it is important that the government should not only be ethical, but it should be seen as ethical. And because of that, again, the need of having ethical moral governance is far more in government institutions. Although it is very important to understand that the private organizations, the international organizations, corporates, they all need ethical framework, they all need, and that's why, because of that only, we are studying it. We should also understand that private, international and corporates are not away from the government has an interface with it. Government is attached to private organizations, it is attached to corporates, it is attached to international bodies. So the government ethical conduct will set a standard, a leadership for others to follow. I'll give you an example. See, you go to Dubai, you go to Singapore. In Dubai, you leave your car on the road with the keys on in the car, go to your home, go off to sleep, get up after 8 hours, 10 hours, then go back to the car. The keys will be there. The car and keys both are safe. You see, the conduct of the government, the conduct of the government itself sets so high standard that other institutions, like if there are businesses, they cannot think of doing a fraud at all, because the severest punishment will be given to them. Go to Singapore. They are the same situation. You go to any university, If they have written that the university bench, chair, desk, the teachers all will be of the high quality, high standards, they promise and they deliver it. They take a tax deduction from you, which is much more higher than other countries, but they serve. You compare it to India. As we see that politicians are corrupt, we have this perception in our mind, most politicians are corrupt. Because the politicians are corrupt, the whole ecosystem is corrupt, the private institutions, they also act like corrupt institutions, corrupt people. How and why? Simple example, you see your internet. The internet promises that you will be getting a 150 Mbps of the speed. This is promised by them, 150. And what they are getting is 50 Mbps. 200 Mbps, but you are getting is 20 Mbps. So what is the problem? The problem lies in the fault, the inefficiency in the delivery. And this standard has been set by the government itself. And government standard, unfortunately, is set by the people, the standard of the people. You see, the more corrupt people are, the more corrupt is the government. People always criticize that I did not get this service, the government is not following the rules, the government is not providing us these resources. But have they ever looked at their own conduct? Once they do so, they will realize that it is our conduct, it is the conduct of the ethical moral principles of the people which is reflected in the ethical moral conduct of the people that is reflected in the private institutions also, public institutions also. So there is a need to correct this on part of each and every citizen of the country. Now, once we have understood the significance of the ethical governance or ethical framework of governance, how important and how crucial it is as far as government institutions are concerned, we will further look at the main aspect of the ethical moral governance. And what was the main aspect? Out of all the factors, simple, moral, accountable, responsive, and transparent. The accountable part. That is accountability. Accountability is the most important, is the hallmark, is the cornerstone of the ethical governance. There can be a question like this as well. Question can be discussed. Accountability is the accountability is the cornerstone of ethical governance. There can be a factor like this, there can be a question like this. Now we'll understand how and what is actually accountability. What is accountability? When you are directly approachable, accountable, or when you take responsibility of the acts done by you, either intendedly or unintendedly. You had the intention to do wrong, or you did not even know You were just taking your action, and within that action you unintendedly took a wrong decision. When you take responsibility of not only the intended decision but unintended decision also, not only the direct consequences but the indirect consequences also, that is called the responsive and ethical framework. Accountable framework. You are not only accountable to the action which you have taken intendedly, consciously, but you should also be responsible for the actions which emerged as an unintended consequences. Because of the unintended consequences of the decision which you took, you will realize that not only small implications but major implications have happened. For example, as I gave you an example of a DC in Jharkhand, Deputy Commissioner in Jharkhand, ordered for the construction of the houses for their tribes, scheduled tribes who were staying in the vicinity of the forest of the Jharkhand. Now, the decision was taken with a fair intention, with a bona fide intention, positive intention that they should get the house. But what happened? The scheduled tribes, they have a habit of living in a house whose door is half their height, so that they can bow down while entering the house. Now, this was not done. The doors were not kept half their height. These tribes, they did not go to the houses, they stayed in the forest itself, they did not go to the newly constructed houses. And because of it, what happened? When the government introduced the houses with half the height, even they did not go there because they realized something wrong will be there. If the door is correct, there may be some other vastu issue. There may be some other issue which we don't like, we don't follow. It may insult our nature God. Now you see the unintended consequences. The officer is called ethical when the officer will take responsibility of this also. Not only the intended, not only the direct, but indirect consequences also. And see, that requires what? That you have courage. It's a virtue. We have seen courage as a virtue for your ethical moral conduct. It will also ensure that you work in public interest. What drives you is public interest. When these two things are followed, we say that the ethical governance or good governance is being followed. You understood the meaning of accountability when we talk about the public organizations, the government organizations, what actually it means. Government organizations will have to take the responsibility of all the intended or unintended consequences of their decisions. Now we'll come to the types of accountability. What types of accountability are there? When we talk about the types of accountability, first of all, you will have to visualize how the action takes place in government. Suppose this is the organization, this is your organization. This organization may be your Department of Road Transport, DRT, Department of Road Transport. Now there are two types of accountability here. One is your vertical accountability, another one is your horizontal accountability. What is vertical accountability? Vertical accountability, the overall accountability of this department lies to whom? Not to you, not to themselves, but to the citizen, the people. They are directly responsible for the lives of the people. So this is vertical accountability. The department is sitting in on the head of the people. This you can imagine and try to remember this. What about internal? This is your vertical, then your horizontal. Two types of divisions are done as far as accountability is concerned. This is your vertical, this is horizontal. Vertical with the people. What about horizontal? Horizontal with other departments. This is Department of Road Transport, Department of Agriculture, Department of Soil Health. What are the accountability among them? How accountable they are to another department, which is also the part of the government. That is your horizontal accountability. Vertical accountability, are you accountable towards the people or not? I'm just giving you a framework of what actually this accountability is when we talk about ethical governance. Then there are, apart from horizontal or vertical, external and internal. This is your horizontal. Horizontal, vertical, external, internal. What is external and internal? Internal, within the organization. External, some other source. Like in the external accountability comes your courts, tribunals, and what? Ombudsman. You must have heard about the name of the ombudsman, like Lokpal. Lokpal is or Lokpal or Lekpal. Lokpal, generally it is called Lokpal in the most of the states. During the Anna Hazare movement, which replaced the government in Delhi, and because of which there was huge uproar and the government in the center at that time, UPA suffered a huge loss. They were asking for this Lokpal. What is Lokpal? The ombudsman, a person who is not part of the government but having an oversight, having a watch, the watchdog of the government organizations, that is ombudsman. Courts are also doing the same thing. The government officials are accountable to these courts, tribunals, and ombudsmen. That is your external accountability, not in the department. In the same department, internal, as we say, internal inquiry is going on. What is internal inquiry? Inquiry done by somebody who is above you, but in the same department. Your ASP, here is the SP. You are accountable to SP. This is your internal, and external is your regarding the courts and other institutions. Which accountability is more important? See, as the laws, bylaws, or the conduct rules which are there in the department define it, there are certain methods which make this accountability, the internal accountability, very much fixed, very much defined. So where can be a problem, or where are the issues of accountability, where can the issues of accountability arise? That is in the external accountability. When the courts call you, courts summon you, suppose there is a chief secretary of the state. Chief secretary of the state called by the high court of the state. High court is asking them, why are you not appearing in front of us? You have taken a wrong decision, and because of that, what you have, the decision which you have taken is, the schools will open at 10 a.m. By 10 a.m. there are so much of traffic on the road, the kids cannot reach to the school. Some of them had suffered a huge loss because they could not attend to the examination, board examination. Whose fault is this? The chief secretary is not appearing in front of the high court. After summon, he is not appearing. Accountability is lacking here. And in most of the cases, the internal accountability is safe. External accountability is not taken care of. And factor is that in the internal accountability, when the person or the small part of the organization is accountable to the larger part within the organization, the internal accountability also requires to be scrutinized. Because see, if it is a departmental inquiry, what happens? In most of the cases, in the departmental inquiry, suppose the policeman is undergoing inquiry because of the Human Rights Commission, they have opened fire in a huge gathering in the crowd in a marketplace, and because of that, what happened? Many innocent people were killed. The department ordered an inquiry, but due to departmental affiliations, the inquiry will not be conclusive, inquiry will not be fair, inquiry will not be objective. So there is a role of ombudsman here, somebody who can be a watchdog, and that is why the role of external accountability increases. Largely speaking, public organizations, government organizations should follow two types of accountability which are crucial. Vertical, that is towards the people, their accountability towards people should be of paramount importance. Secondly, external. External and vertical, EV, as electrical vehicles are nowadays on the road, EV, external accountability and vertical accountability. You don't need to write these words when you are writing your answers, but you need to understand the essence of it. What is the essence of this? That Internally, you may be subjected to certain laws, regulations which you will follow. Even if you don't follow the internal members of your organization, they have affinity towards you, they will not punish you. Horizontally also, you may be having some liaison with another department, you may not be caught. But you must be having high standard of accountability vertically, that is towards the people, as I keep on saying, the public interest. Likewise, the external accountability, that is, you must be accountable towards the courts, you must be accountable towards the ombudsman, you must be accountable towards the tribunals. Tribunals are nothing but semi courts, half court, half civilian, that is your tribunal. So, the accountability makes an important case. Accountability becomes very important, very crucial whenever we talk about the good governance, whenever we talk about the ethical governance, whenever we talk about the transparent governance. Now, once you have understood this, then comes the role of ethical conduct, moral conduct in the international institutions, under international laws, international monetary institutions, especially as I talked about the BYJU'S, and the ethical conduct required in the corporate governance, which will deal in the class tomorrow. Today, keeping a shorter class, but very soon will be able to cover the theory part of the GS paper 4. Some parts are lacking in psychology and essay, but because most of the things are covered now, we can generate traction and speed in those departments also. Okay, so I'm leaving it right now only. Tomorrow onwards, we'll have our ethics classes as well as psychology classes. Psychology class will be held today also. Thank you very much for joining. Keep revising your notes. I'll ensure that your notes are given in the right format to you very soon. Thank you.